players that will show up, turn up and set standards. What are you flipping knocking at, you mug? My wall's going to fall down.
Hello there, guys. Welcome back to ShootOut. Welcome back to a brand new video. I hope, George hopes, we both hope you are all doing well. Last game Chelsea have had did not go well. And
No.
Things are looking a little bit weird at the moment. That's to say the least, right? So we're going to try and dissect and get into this and see exactly what needs to be said. George, firstly, how are you doing? And your thoughts on that 4-1 loss away at Newcastle before we get cracking?
Yeah, I think how you're doing is always relative to the results. The results were good. Then the one at the weekend was kind of like, we had like a hot air balloon. And you've just gone to Cappadocia. It's the dream place to fly a hot air balloon. And then as soon as you get in the air, as you're just about to go over those beautiful views, someone just gets like a massive pin and just puts it in that hot air balloon. And your hot air balloon ride is over. That's kind of how it feels right now, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
It's like we got excited for good reason. And you've got to get excited. When you draw with Man City and play the way we did, you beat your biggest rivals away. You've got to let yourself go a little bit and think, yeah, we could actually do something great. And then the Newcastle match, like they were good, but they didn't have to do anything spectacular. They had half a flipping team and we were just shocking. Like the discipline for a start, I think that's a good place to begin. Because what has happened, like, I saw a great video that you did talking about Pochettino's comments, and then there was no training. Jackson's flipping in Spain, having a flipping Parma ham salad. And, like, what has happened to Chelsea for us to be in a position where getting battered by a European rival, it's like, have a day off. Like, what's that all about?
Yeah. And this is the thing, with the comments that were made, like, there wouldn't have been any noise if no comment was made and then there was no training the next day. But even on top of that, we now know that we had 2 days off. So it's just...
I still think it would have been a problem. Like, Of course it's a problem. Like, how can you think that when clearly we're not a good enough football team to beat another team, how is giving days off going to make you a better team? Like, they've got to be... What is it, bro? Like, what is it about this team, do you think, that is making us this beatable? Like, I've never seen a Chelsea team so beatable by any level of opposition, ever.
It's bonkers. And to be honest, with the way that it seems like it's going, I can't nail it down too much, except for it has to be your base and your foundation. And that comes to your discipline, your focus, your concentration, your commitment. All of those are your base and your foundation. When we talk about bringing the players in for training the next day, people, I think, have the misconception, and I've mentioned this, that they got to come in and just run laps and just, go through military punishment. No, because absolutely that can run the risk of injury. We know that, and that's, that wouldn't be the wisest decision to just, punish in a physical manner. But to bring them back the next day into the environment so they're all together and they can all just think about what went down the previous day, and as I've said, collectively be in that environment of what went down was unacceptable, and then run them through recovery, get them to recover quicker, run them through the game, go through what went wrong. But as long as they're in that environment and trying to think of what went wrong and trying to come up with those solutions and listening to what Poch has to say, if you've come into work the very next day and you don't have the day off, that's enough. That's enough to be able to set the tone that what went down was unacceptable. And this is where we turn to the Man City game and you think what we showed in that game was quality. But when the fact that we are not just not consistent, it's inconsistency beyond... I can't even come up with a word. It's ridiculous how inconsistent we are. And I think it's just down to that issue. It's down to that issue that there isn't a tone, it seems like, within the football club as a whole as to where the standard and the discipline needs to be set. and we're just too infrequent with our form and the way that we're doing our things. I think it's too light. It seems like we're taking things way too lightly. It's not good enough. It's not good enough.
But let's break it down though. Like, let's say Sunday is the Newcastle game, or Saturday. Saturday's the Newcastle game. Next Sunday, so this Sunday is the Brighton game. If you give the players 2 days off, okay, there's an international break there, but let's break that down. Sunday and Monday, nothing happens. Tuesday, what is going to happen there? Is it you get yourself back into the swing of things, you're doing a few like fitness drills to recuperate from that game against Newcastle because you probably didn't just sit and do nothing on your days off. And then after that, it's like, how many days are spent working on new things? When you're a team like Chelsea are right now, how many of those days, if you're going to give 2 days off between the next match, are you working on new things to become better, new patterns of play, new different ways of trying to like break teams down? And then how many days can then be given to look at Brighton and be like, right, okay, yeah, they've not been in great form, but they play a specific way. So you've got to dissect what went wrong against Newcastle, kind of get that out of the system and into the systems of the players to be like, well, we've played against this before, we struggled, we failed. Now this has happened again. This is what we do. But then how much time is being dedicated here at Chelsea to reflection for a team that is clearly young, new, and needs to have work done to it, but then also preparation? I think right now, the lackadaisical nature of how Chelsea are approaching this, seemingly from what we can see by Pochettino allowing 2 days off for the players after that Newcastle game, there's not enough importance on growing right now with a big young group of players like this. Like, how are they going to learn? Where is the time? If you're just having like little 2-day weekend benders potentially, like Nicholas Jackson going to Spain. I don't know what everyone else did because they kept it all quiet. But like, come on, like how are this team going to learn if A, there's no standards, and B, there isn't enough time for reflection and preparation? That's what I think is ticked me off the most about this. When you hear John Terry's comments, you see all of these things about the standards. Florent Malouda's interview with Mikel, they're talking about standards all the time. Drogba's said it before about how he doesn't recognise Chelsea Football Club because the standards have gone. Like, something needs to dramatically change. And it's not necessarily going to be what we see on the field. And as fans, I think that's what we want. We expect results. We expect good performances. We think that if we do it against City, we can do it against anybody. But the standards must change off the pitch before we even kick a ball every weekend. And it's only once a flipping week we're playing. How has it got to this point?
This is the point. This is exactly what I was going to mention. This is on a 1 game a week schedule. Like, I can understand people saying if we were playing Champions League, if any European competition, we had games midweek and whatnot. You know, Newcastle, for example, have an excuse to have a day off or two in midweek because of what they've just gone through. They beat us 4-1 with players out, gone to Paris 3 days later, put in a performance like that, got robbed of a win, right? And we're complaining about having 2 days off on a 1 game a week schedule. We can't handle 1 game a week. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. And you're completely right. It's about those standards set at the football club right now. Regardless of what happens on the pitch, and look, more the reason for things to be set at the football club, because these players, clearly, a lot of them are young, a lot of them are inexperienced, a lot of them are not ready to be at the elite level, right? So more the reason to try and set the example. You spoke about John Terry and a few of the others that were talking about the standard that was set back in the day. And it's completely that. Yeah. If they went through a loss, right, that's it. Everyone was obsessed with the fact that we just lost the way that we did. Now, that's unacceptable. We're not letting that happen again. We got to get right back to work again. And like I said, it doesn't need to be physical, but these players need to be brought back into that environment, and more the reason to use the time that we have, which we haven't done this week. Because Brighton, right, have obviously been training. They're focusing on Europa League this week, and then they got to play us. So they've not got the same luxury that we have, but we've wasted 2 days out. And some people are going to say, oh no, but it's okay. Give them 2 days off, right? Let them take their minds off it. That's not the right way to go when they're at their development stage, when they're at the level that they are at the moment, and they need to understand what just went down. They don't need to run away from it. I feel like we're running away from things. But like you said, it's about what standard is set at the football club from top to bottom. And you have to stress it comes from the top. So it comes from the structure at the very top. And then it stems down to Pochettino and what he sets. And then it stems down to the players. So there needs to be an example set, which we know we don't have in the team. We don't have, leaders and winners that we can turn to.
I think, but that's also kind of why the owners, for example, under Abramovich, I know that Abramovich obviously made such drastic, sometimes what we thought was the wrong, often proved to be right decisions because we kept winning trophies. I think back then, there was a balance. There was a balance because there was a ruthlessness of the owner, but that has to equate to something that is balanced day by day, which is a John Terry, a Frank Lampard, a Drogba, a Cech, players that would absolutely never let any of those standards slip. Whereas now, we've got owners who seemingly reacted last season to something and fired more managers than Abramovich has ever done in a season. Granted, that was chaos, that was hectic, but overall, the plan has been get a decent manager in who can be a moldable project manager, but then as a result of that, it's kind of just we've kind of accepted now that because there are no player standards at the club or standard setters at the club, that it's going to be all right. We can just be up and down. We're going to have great games. We're going to have bad games. And it's overall, I think what we need desperately more than anything else is senior playing personnel at the club. And I mean, when we look at the flipping news that me and you have to talk about most days regarding Chelsea's transfer rumours and all this stuff, I just flipping see 18-year-old Brazilians again. So it's all right, cool. Well, haven't we built a super squad for the next for 5 years' time now? Why can't... How can we be the ones constantly seeing all of this? I don't think there's many people that can disagree here. Chelsea Football Club need some playing personnel that can grab the rest of them by the scruff of the neck and be like, look, boys, I know that there's 2 days scheduled off. The manager don't really know if he's coming or going with being able to change it or not. But do we not want to flip this on its head? Do we not want to actually all gather together here and be like, this is unacceptable. Look at the badge that we're wearing on our shirts. Look at the football club that we're playing for and being paid by. These standards just aren't right. And it seems like a passive, pointless comment that was made a few weeks ago, but it makes so much sense to me now about how the players after a loss are posting all these photos with them putting their arms around one another, smiling, hugging. Social media has obviously inflated this up because there's always content that needs to be posted, but there's a big point in this, I think, to be fair. There's a massive thing to be said about the face of how things look, and I think that's why fans like us can potentially get very pissed off about the way that we are reacting to the bad things that we're seeing on the field, which is inevitably the only thing that's important in football. So I think the players at the moment just don't have any kind of edge about them to take responsibility for being young, for being naive, and being poor and crap at times. And I don't really see anyone else in the squad because you flipping captains getting sent off for petulance. The manager's not even in the flipping dugout because he's been sent off before and he's accumulated too many bookings. There's got to be some, I was going to say alphas, but that's absolutely not the modern way to say it. There's got to be leaders. There's got to be someone in there who's like, boys, look, I don't give a flying crap. I'm going into Cobham tomorrow, and even if I'm just going to shoot at a goal so that we can score more than the next team, that's what I'm going to do. I wish we had players like that. I don't see where this is going to come with the current system, with the way that we're recruiting, and the personnel we have right now. I think we're a bit screwed. I don't want to be Mr. Negative, but I do see that we're screwed, personally.
No, you're completely right here, because there has to be a level of logic to the situation, right? When we see performances like we saw against Man City, for example, and look, I have to be honest, I think there's a level of hope that came from that result as to why everyone reacted the way that they did. As to, okay, we've shown what we've shown today. Fantastic. We've got something in us. Can we move forward with that? And can we keep showing, And then that's where I think there is a positive nature that comes out of it. But we've been hit way too many times with these sort of results, and then we go all the way back, right? So now I think it's a case of we're just not going to be fooled again. But I'm worried that there's a level of acceptance. And it feels like there's just a lot of people going, it is what it is. We'll be back in 2 years or something. Like, that's not going to fly. And more the reason now, people are going to say that we need to think more long term and we need to do all of that. More the reason to actually not right now in today's game, where there are financial consequences and repercussions that the owners are going to realize soon if we keep going this way. Unlike before, where I said this a few days ago, I feel like we were ahead of the curve. We were thinking a lot more short term back in the day when we actually didn't really need to, because there actually wasn't much financial repercussion when, you suffer for a season or two. Now, you suffer for half a season and there's consequences, So it's more the reason to actually think about sorting the situation out now. And people need to understand, I think, that just because you're thinking about players that are going to come and make a difference now, that's not going to jeopardize the players that you want to develop. In fact, it will help them. It will alleviate pressure. It will set an example. You'll get people that will be able to, or players that will be able to be in the squad and show these young players how to lead, how to set the bar, how to set a standard, how to set the example, what to do to feed off the experience and the expertise and the mentality that those players that can do it now set. That's only going to help the players that we're looking to grow. Like I've said, I feel like we've done half the things right. I feel like we've got players that do have talent. They have, what it takes to be superstars in 3 or 4 years, but they ain't got it now. But there's no one in the team to actually guide them or set the example. And that's where I feel like we're just a bunch of headless chickens just winging it. We're winging it. We are absolutely winging it. And we can't just keep winging it.
Let's paint a picture. I've got like an idea here that I've just come up with in my head whilst you're saying that, because I agree with everything that you've just said. You remember when we're younger and we're playing like in our Sunday league teams, and the most successful Sunday league teams, until you become about like 12 or 13, where it then becomes about like being good at football or not being good at football. When you're like between 6 and 12, there's always that team that have that one kid who just somehow has been in a flipping tomato grow bag who's 6'1". And every time you play against that team, whether he's centre back or not, he's going to score a hat trick and you're probably going to lose because he's bigger and better than everybody else. When I look at modern day football at the professional level, it is leaders and experience and players that have been around enough time, like Man City have, like Liverpool have, who can be those guides and those sources when things are looking desperate. That's how professional football works at the top level. Chelsea don't have that. So when things are going wrong, there isn't the big lanky centre-back to come and like salvage something for you. And in this case now, I mean, like, there isn't a leader. There isn't somebody who can guide the team when they're all out there together and tactics go out the window. What the manager said in training goes out the window. What the fans are saying from the outside, you can't really do much about it other than just like express your angst or express your how impressed you are of what you've seen. Chelsea don't have any of those players at all. And the ones that we do either get sent off or in one match show how old they are. And I mean, I don't want to throw Thiago Silva under the bus here, but bloody hell, did I look at him in that game and think, you can't do this anymore against teams that have got legs, energy. You cannot do it. You just can't do it. And those are Chelsea's two players that are your big lanky muffins who play when you're 6 and 7 years old. And if those two aren't on, I'm looking around, I'm thinking hundreds upon hundreds of millions, but none of you have got it. That's what we've got to deal with right now. That's the truth, in my opinion.
And this goes to the one point that you mentioned. When you're looking at those players, and rightfully so, look, I look at Thiago Silva, right? And he sets the bar. He does set the bar. And even at his age of 39, he's had a terrible game against Newcastle. But you just know that you take a Thiago Silva out of that defence, for example, and overall, we do become weaker. We just do. That is how it is. Now, the same goes for Reece James, but it's about setting the tone week in, week out, and not letting silly mistakes come into your game whatsoever, because you are one of the seniors and you are one of the ones that's meant to be setting that example. But it goes back to the strategy. You just mentioned about how much that we've spent and all these players that we have. This strategy needs to shift immediately, I think. Coming into January, there needs to be in-house, there needs to be things done in-house in order to come up with a ruthlessness. You mentioned the time under Roman and why there was just a level that was so high. It was because there was a ruthlessness. Manager and players knew that they just couldn't mess about. Even players, they just knew that they couldn't mess about. No matter what level that they were, they had to make sure that they were giving 150% at every single given time. If not, their career at Chelsea was at risk. That's just how it was. There needs to be that sort of bar set in order to light up a spark in all of these players that are taking it a bit too lightly. On top of that, the strategy does need to change, because yes, we've adopted every single young player that exists in world football, and we're looking to now get even younger and pluck out all the 11 and 12-year-olds that probably exist. But we need to shift and bring in, if we're looking to bring 2 or 3 players in the January window, and not just throw money at anything, and that's not just going to solve the problem, but we need to get 2 or 3 that are going to bring pedigree to this team and show these young players how it's done. And then we can roll with that. Right. We don't need to get into another transfer window or anything. We don't need to do any more. That's how I think the strategy needs to shift in order for us to at least save the season. Because if we don't save the season and we come mid-table again and miss out European football 2 years in a row, and this one on 1 game a week, I wouldn't know what to say. It's
I honestly think that the weirdest thing in the history of me filming a YouTube video in 12 years has happened as you've just been speaking about this. So basically, would you say, I'm going to turn my camera so everyone can see this, because this is actually cooked what's just happened here. Would you say that right now Chelsea are trying to paper over the cracks of things? Would you say that? Or paint over the cracks and not actually dealing with problems? Would you say that's what's happened?
I do reckon, yeah.
Right. I don't know if you guys could hear that while Eunice was talking, but it sounded like someone was trying to break into my house. They were drilling next door, and I swear to God, my whole wall has just cracked in my bedroom.
Oh my... you better
Look
check.
At this.
Is that Todd Bowley?
Look at this. I don't know if you can see it, but like the whole wall has cracked on my side of the wall. I'm going to film it with my phone. I'll insert it as footage in the middle here. It's actually cracked my whole wall. They're drilling or something next door. But I'm going to try and roll with it here, but you'll see that I was bewildered by what was just happening. I just honestly think that is what the owners are trying to do when it comes to the way that they're building this project, the way that they're building this vision for where the club should be, is simply papering over the cracks of the bad things that were done with the ownership before and claiming that it's going to be okay in the long run when football isn't like it used to be. Footballers that we have bought, like Enzo Fernandez, Moises Caicedo, clearly world-class potential players, will not stay at Chelsea for their 8-year contracts if we keep on being a mid-table club. So eventually, Todd Bowley has got to stop thinking about Mr. Flippin' Angelo, who's 16, or Mr. Kendry, who, by the way, probably going to be incredible players, but like the next one of those. You've got to just buy some ready-made talent, please. For me, it's so blatantly obvious what this squad needs. It needs leaders. It needs big players. Not big names necessarily, but players that will show up, turn up and set standards. What are you flipping knocking at, you mug? My wall's going to fall down. Can you hear, you can hear the knocking? Can you hear it?
It sounds like it's falling apart on your end over there, mate. I mean, you better check, because it's Todd Bowley that's got a drill. I don't know, but look, hopefully your house doesn't fall over.
Off. Oh my God, I can't believe this. I'm so sorry that this has ended this video like this. This is outrageous.
It's all falling apart. This is it, and we better hope it doesn't fall apart on Sunday. But I want to support your point, right? I want to support your point. There has to be a ruthlessness and standard set now. the recruitment that I feel like we've done, like I've said, in terms of the young players that we've got in, okay, fantastic, great. We don't need to explore that anymore. I feel like we're well covered in that department. We need to bring in some pedigree. If not, we are just turning around in circles. It's as simple as that. We're going around in circles. Other teams are getting better. We will be left behind. So there needs to be a standard off the pitch set by the owners, the board. Everyone needs to make sure that they are operating at an elite level. Change the strategy, light a spark up the players and Poch, and let's go in January in order to bring in what needs to be done to save the season at least, and then we can move forward. If not, we will be in the mud.
I think you nailed it, mate. I think that's absolutely it. And the problem is, are those top level players that we need going to come in January? Probably not. So maybe the season's over, but there has to be. I think we've nailed this video, you know. I think we have said more than enough stuff that isn't just like, oh, Chelsea season's finished, we're rubbish, I can't believe that it's not the Roman era. Like, I'm kind of over that. But I'm also kind of over the topsy-turvy, flip-floppy, we're good one week, we're bad the next, without like addressing any of the actual issues. Do you know what I mean? Like, just buy some players that are ready-made. Stop trying to mould every single 18-year-old into being the next best thing, because all the good ones are going to piss off, because they're not going to want to be lingering around 10th for their whole careers at Chelsea. Come on, get with it.
It's exactly that. And the more that you go down in this direction, the more unlikely it becomes in future for you to attract top talent, because you actually become a mid-table club. And I'd like to think that, no, we can still steer this back into the direction that we should be heading in, not lingering mid-table for 2 seasons in a row. Because if we do, there could be severe repercussions. And we can't shy away from the situation and the truth. Call it out as it is. And that's the only way that we give ourselves a chance of getting better. It's as simple as that.
No, I agree. As the good old phrase goes, a spade is a spade.
It is. And your wall is your wall, so I hope it stays intact.
Well, it's not my flipping wall much longer, mate. I'm telling you that now. I can see it at the corner of my eye. You'll see it on the footage. I can see my wall cracking as we're filming this video. And I can hear him like, why? I'm only in here because my AC broke today in my office. Like, it's just not going very well. When it rains, it flipping pours. Just like my football club. I give up.
Big time. And I hope your roof stays intact. If not, it will be pouring in your office.
Oh, good Lord.
Get there quick, sort it out.
I quit. I'm done. I'm out.